Welcome to the Data Stream, the podcast that dives deep into the fast-moving currents of data, technology, and the law. BakerHostetler's Digital Assets and Data Management Practice Group, DADM, offers you this series. Hosted by partners David Sherman and Nichole Sterling to explore how companies navigate the complex and often intertwined lifecycle of data, from privacy and cybersecurity to advertising, AI, and other emerging technologies. I'm Charlie May, and you're listening to Baker Hosts. On today's episode, David and Nichole speak with Katherine Lowry, BakerHostetler's CIO and a nationally recognized leader in legal innovation, AI strategy, and digital transformation. They explore how she's reshaping the legal world with AI, data, and a fresh approach to how law firms work.
Good morning, Katherine. Thank you for joining us today. Looking back at your journey from lawyer to more traditional IT leadership to spearheading AI initiatives, was the job that you have now even on your radar when you graduated from law school? And actually, before you answer that, what is your job now?
Well, good morning, and definitely excited to be here with you today. So my job today is Chief Information Officer, and I get to manage an amazing team of about 130 information professionals and technologists across our organization. And so part of my role, I would say, is helping to drive legal innovation through AI and digital transformation. Really key part of what we do here at Baker that makes us quite unique. But kind of back to your original question, did I know this is what I was going to do when I was in law school? Not even in the slightest. I never imagined this. And in fact, I knew that I really loved working with technology. I'd actually been paid $10 an hour to break a software while I was in law school. And it was a legal software that probably is still in production today. And I will say that I absolutely loved it. So my journey has always involved something that's much more technical, whether it's been, helping distribute information through different pieces of technology or developing different pieces of software. But I will also say that it really didn't accelerate until I got here at Baker some 15 years ago.
Can you tell us a little bit? I know one of the teams that you have worked very closely with at Baker is our IncuBaker team. Can you tell us the sort of origin story of IncuBaker and how that's evolved under your leadership?
Yeah, so honestly, I think that started when I arrived here at the firm in 2010. Not by name yet. It was really part of the work that I was doing with Bob Craig, who was our former CIO at the time. And I had consulted for him a couple of years prior to coming to the firm. Our conversations were really lengthy about how do we reshape the service delivery of technology into our core practice groups. So having a legal background, I was working more and more with our core practice teams on how do we get technology in their hands and increase adoption. That was a core part of it. Some 5 years later is when we formed IncuBaker, and we really went to the firm leadership at the time and said, listen, we see this huge amount of technology, like a tidal wave that's getting ready to hit the firm. And we wanted to form IncuBaker around emerging technology. Back then, it was AI and machine learning. Blockchain, the Gartner Nexus of Forces, which includes cloud and many, many more aspects of emerging tech. And so we wanted to ask the firm to embrace a research framework so that we could test new technology and bring it into the core practice areas, just like we had with other technology. And at the time, there were 4 founding partners that supported our endeavor. Paul Schmidt, who's our chairman today, Ted Kovas, who leads our DADM group today, Brett Wall, our chief operating partner, and Gil Cateltas, still one of the best e-discovery attorneys that we have here at the firm. And actually, Gil's the one that dubbed the name IncuBaker, and it just stuck. But that
you read my mind. I was actually going to ask who was responsible. I've always wanted to know who was responsible for the name.
Yes,
of Baker.
It was Gil. And it was just one of those meetings where we were pitching the idea to them. They were helping to embrace it. And I think we were getting ready to present at one of our partner retreats. And Gil says, it would be great if we called it IncuBaker. And it stuck. So we've had that ever since. And people just love the name. So I always make sure that he gets credit for that.
Okay, that makes so much sense. And I mean that in the best possible way about Gil, but now that there's that association. Anyway, so with that, Katherine, what drives your passion for innovation and how do you cultivate that mindset across your teams, thinking about everything that IncuBaker does for us?
At the core, I really think it comes down to two things: curiosity and collaboration. So I've always had this really just passionate drive, tenacious appetite to compete, very competitive. Most know me for that. And I will say that I think the team that works in this area for us is just really well steeped in collaboration as well. We know that not one of us is going to have the best and brightest idea, but rather it's going to be all of us collectively thinking, how are we going to solve a problem that helps drive that collaboration? And so that's a really core and important aspect of anybody joining the team, and the mindset across the team is that we have to be both curious, we have to collaborate, we are going to have to constantly reinvent workflows, capabilities based on whatever technology that we're dealing with, or even more uniquely, whatever practice group or team that we're working with. Because I have a philosophy that each practice team in our firm, and we have over 40 of them, speak a different language. And we think about that in a data-driven way and how we can help leverage that to build bigger, better workflows across the group.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think we each, think that we are special and unique and need everything at the speed of now.
Yes.
So in your role as CIO, how do you take this collaborative approach to team building, right, and balance the traditional nature of law or a law firm needs and the need for operational stability with digital transformation and experimentation within the field of emerging technology?
The legal industry is very unique. And so I will say we walk that line very, very carefully. We require a great deal of perfection. We require a great deal of uptime. So it isn't lost on me that it is important for us to make sure that the lights are still on, that our network is up and stable, that we've got good security. We spend equal amounts of time on that as we do thinking about how to modernize our workplace. And maybe what I'll just say real quickly to that end, I think our firm is really unique and great in the sense that we have a very transparent 5-year strategic plan. So our chairman, Paul Schmidt, creates this strategic plan. He shares it with everyone across the firm. And we are and have been working on the release of the 2025 to 2030 plan. And the reason I bring it up here is because inside of that, we sat down, my team, and we went through from the technology side of the house, and we went through what are our core objectives. And while naturally AI is going to be a big focus and it's going to be central to many conversations, and it needs to be, it isn't and by far wasn't the only one. And so we think about it from a foundational level. What do our conference rooms and modern workplace on the digital desktop look like, and how are they performing? Network, security, right? All of those things have to factor in. And only if you have those things can you move forward with the advanced technology. So it plays a really central core role for us as we talk about making sure that the firm, really advances forward in a operationally stable state.
So you raised AI, and I know that one of the things that you do is help to guide the firm's cross-practice AI team as well. And I know that sort of AI and legal services gets a lot of press right now. We see a lot of the stories about, AI hallucinations and things showing up in court cases. Can I ask what your take on the role of AI in client-facing legal services is? Sort of where do you see the greatest potential for transformation with the use of AI, and where should we be treading carefully?
This is such a great question, and largely because just a couple weeks we rolled out a press release about a significant partnership. So BakerHostetler just entered a strategic 3-year partnership with VLEX to bring Vincent AI's legal workflows into our own firm's proprietary practice intelligence system and the AI services that we're already building. So I think this is a really great question because it evolves around that. So naturally, I'm going to say I'm extremely excited about the role of AI in legal services. And I find it to be one of the biggest enablers of efficiency and insight that our industry has ever seen. And you have to remember that over the past 8 years, our firm has been so data-driven. We've been working with structured data for so long that the ability to have generative AI help us extract data out of contracts, out of complaints, and be able to structure that so that we can continue our data journey is just super, super critical for us. So I do want to say I temper that excitement with just a real healthy dose of caution, largely because I think everyone knows AI is not perfect. It's not infallible. And then we have to be really careful about the accuracy, where the data is going, which is why we spend so much time vetting the different solutions that we use so that we have good control over our data. And knowing that it's never going to replace human judgment. So I think that's a really big deal to me, is making sure that everyone in our firm, we talk with clients, like, this is not going to replace people, but yet I think it could be viewed as a smart assistant, just not a lawyer.
Yeah, I think that's a key piece that you've been trying to build into the education of attorneys at the firm, as well as what AI does well and perhaps where we should not be using it.
That's right. Right.
You also mentioned the new 5-year strategic plan. So I'm going to ask you to just sort of put on a hypothetical hat here and say that if you could fast forward 5 years, so say 2030, what does the ideal tech-enabled law firm look like to you?
In 5 years, I think the best law firms, and I think our law firm, will look and operate quite differently than it does today, largely because I feel that the next 5 years, you're going to see more fully tech-enabled firms, is what I'm calling it. And that means that AI and data analytics are kind of woven into every workflow around us. And we're using that data to help us reduce these cumbersome tasks, highly manual processes that we see across different areas of work. I think it'll be largely automated, and it'll enable lawyers to really devote time to high value advisory work. To me, that's the vision, and feel like I can see it as a painting in my mind. And I think this, with every stroke of what we're doing, we are working towards that.
Well, that sounds like an exciting future law firm state for me. I think all of us who practice would love to spend more time on the sort of critical thinking side and less on the administrative functions.
Well, you know what's so interesting about that, just to kind of segue into, I think an important piece of all of this is that attorneys, I think, will truly accelerate in, the next 5 years. And those that are really like, your critical thinking as a lawyer is going to serve you so well when you're critically thinking about, how do I use AI? I think it's actually those with that mentality that will rise the most. Obviously, I think those that are not leveraging AI are going to fall behind. It will actually be those that accelerate the adoption of AI and incorporate that into their practice that'll become really critical. But oftentimes I hear kind of things, well, isn't this going to make all of us, just more lazy, or I'm going to over rely on AI? Not if you're using it correctly. And I actually think your critical skills of how you would enhance your prompting, or how you might use not one, but 2 different AI services to help you in your workflow or your process, that will really accelerate you and other attorneys that are really embracing it.
Something that I always think about is, right, you mentioned earlier the evolving workplace, right, ranging from conference rooms into the digital desktop. What does the future law firm look like? And Katherine, I'm just mentioning this as food for thought, not actually prompting a response.
Yeah.
Like, I'm recording today from home because honestly, as we think about the literal workplace, and I have, in the Philly office, right, we have the fish bowls.
Yeah.
I cannot get through an hour without somebody knocking on my glass, bothering me, interrupting. And I can't focus enough to get this done without interruption, which is why I'm recording from home. So when we think about those issues and we think about the digital environment, I don't know, just food for thought, how do trends either, how do we bolster productivity in the workplace and make the office, the physical office continue to be an important place to work?
It's such an interesting thought. And I will say this, every attorney in our law firm has a laptop, largely for disaster recovery. Back in 2020, when we had to send everyone home, not everyone had a laptop. Some had desktops. So we're trying to future-proof your extensibility to work anywhere, anytime. And that's really part of one of our mottos. With that said, the physical presence of our offices are so important for collaboration, right? Learning from each other, talking about what works, doesn't work, having kind of hands-on interaction to, run a mediation, to meet and confer on different items. Those elements can't be lost. And for that reason, our associates really need to focus on training there and making sure that they understand what it means to be an attorney and to have these opportunities of a modern workplace and what does that look like, I think are really, really important to our physical presence and having that on balance. And I think our firm has taken a really great balanced approach with that and being able to be in the office, be able to extend to home and work. So I think it's a core piece of what we're thinking about, and it's really critical.
Katherine, what's one misconception about AI in the legal industry that you just love to debunk?
Well, there's not one, there's maybe two. So let me start at the top. The first one would be that AI will replace lawyers. And maybe even conversely, that you can just turn on AI and let it handle complex legal work. This is absolutely not the reality that we see. And maybe even 5-10 years from now, I don't see that happening. I see process becoming more fluid, and maybe amplifying your expertise as a lawyer, but it's only going to do that, amplify or accelerate is often what I say to our attorneys and to clients that we're working with. To me, human oversight, high quality data, and careful implementation are all big things that AI requires. And so therefore, I would love to demystify that it's going to replace lawyers. I think it will amplify and accelerate you. The other big misconception is this shiny object syndrome. Probably one of the more frustrating ones for me, as the first one, will AI replace lawyers, is really people-centric. I think this one is much more about just a misconception across the legal industry that this new solution is going to do everything we need it to do without critically thinking about how we pull that apart, how it fits into our tech stack, and really focusing on, is this solution overhyped? Is it going to even give me what we are looking for? And by the way, what are we looking for, right? And making sure that we have a good strategic plan as far as AI is going to help us do X, Y, and Z. And so I do see a lot of press. I see a lot of, solutions being selected without much more than a demo. And I think what I'm really proud about is through IncuBaker, we've developed an innovation methodology that we developed in 2015 when we first started. And that same innovation methodology is a rinse and repeat today with generative AI. And it requires us to have pilots. We engage our attorneys. We start to look at what it can do. We will benchmark it against other solutions that we're testing. And we spend more time thinking about strategic investments and trying to place the dollars in the right area. And largely that's backed by, okay, are you as attorneys, are you going to adopt this technology? And we have a framework for that. We look at reliability, usability, accuracy, support by the vendor, and then cost is obviously a factor. But What we're trying to calculate is, are you going to adopt this technology and leverage it? Because nothing's worse than buying a bright, shiny object that you soak a lot of money into and it never gets used. So really proud of some of the work we're doing in that space, but that is definitely one misconception about AI in our industry that is frustrating.
Katherine, following up on two things you said earlier. First, with regard to Vincent and, again, AI technology generally, right? And viewing it more as a smart assistant and not a lawyer. Thinking about that in the context of, these tools, right, are designed to amplify and enhance our practice, not replace lawyers. Something that I hear all the time, right? I have folks come and ask, well, give me a use case. Help me understand how this isn't going to make me irrelevant in 2 years. Can you think of or maybe try to provide what that clear use case is? Meaning, how do we distinguish between replacement and how a lawyer can effectively leverage an AI model to enhance or augment their practice rather than, diminish or replace?
Yes, one of my most favorite, and this is probably more of a geekier answer, I'll give you that. But nevertheless, one of my most favorite is when we are trying to traverse large data sets. And perhaps we are wanting to extract key information out of it so that we can analyze it. So in this instant with Vincent AI, one of the things we really love is being able to use data extraction or extracting data from documents and putting them into tables. The ability to do this across almost every practice group is amazing. So you may see this in M&A where we are trying to pull out assignment or change control clauses so that we can analyze the entire obligation for a client. In this particular use case, you can imagine that the best use of our attorney's time isn't extracting the data out, it's actually analyzing it. And so that's a great example to help show like these pieces of technology are there. And this is why we refer to them as legal workflows that are AI enabled. They're there to help accelerate you on your path to help deliver the best client service that we can to our clients and the best results. So hopefully that's helpful as an example. Those types of data extractions, as just one example, could be across many things. We could pull out allegations from complaints. And obviously we talked about contracts, but it could be we are analyzing specific information for a data breach that we need to be able to pull information out of a client's data set. And these are the accelerators that are just only going to support you, again, not replace you.
No, I appreciate that. One quick follow-up to that, because I have to say I am genuinely afraid of certain skills atrophying. The more I rely on various AI tools in our, that are accessible to us. For instance, I won't use AI to draft deeper emails, right? Because I'm kind of afraid that muscle memory is going to fail at some point if we become too reliant on those tools. I will use it for all sorts of things, but I won't use it necessarily for deep drafting or deep thought. I'd love to have you push back on me. Yeah.
I will say that I do not have the same fears. I don't have David's fears.
No, and I think I'm probably a little unique in that regard, but I'd love, Katherine, push back on me. Tell me how I'm missing an efficiency in that, in that workflow.
So again, one of the early pieces of generative AI, so right back after ChatGPT dropped, part of our innovation methodology is to hold a master class. We were not masters of generative AI, but we were trying to build that. And so we brought in experts. And I remember one of the early use cases that we were talking about, and it's creativity. So think of AI as a creativity enabler, the ability to think about what am I missing? Okay, so we talk about that as what's the white space or what's the gap analysis? Because we are humans. We have a strategy in mind or a view in mind that we're probably targeting, but we might be missing the alternative. So think critically in the other direction. What am I missing? What if I want to use this theory? What might opposing counsel say in regards to that theory so that you can be a checks and balance and use it as a smart assistant to help you think about that? Is it going to probably create your novel legal theories? No, but I think it can be a smart assistant to help you think critically about your argument or your strategy and some of the more fun things that we do on a creative side is just trying to merge some ideas together. Here are my ideas. I'm heading down this direction. What else should I be thinking about? Or how might I craft an argument to support this? So I just feel that it's, again, comes back to this acceleration, and it's zero risk in the sense of, as long as you're using it to help you think through your process and your thought, and you're using it as a step and not as a final output, I think you will be fine, and it will enhance your critical thinking. And like I said in the beginning, attorneys are really great at critical thinking. Use that skill with AI, and I think it will start to take you to a different level.
Well, I feel validation at a minimum. That's, for what it's worth, that's exactly how I find myself using the various tools that we have for the most part. For instance, I was prepping for a significant regulatory hearing arising from a cybersecurity incident, and I used it to argue about the application of various security tools and how they either did or didn't support our working theory of risk. And I used it to essentially not only educate me, but to poke holes in my theory. And as a conceptual learner, that look, I can go down the rabbit hole for hours about arguing with various models, and it's a lot of fun. And you learn stuff. But you're right. That is how you engage. And it's how I also avoid my deep-seated fear of forgetting how to write.
Yeah, you're always going to be writing, and you're always going to be editing, and you're going to, modify output. And I think as long as it's a step in that process, that's really where you're going to find the most opportunity. So I see that, and I really am smiling ear to ear over here, because I think that's amazing. And that's really what we talk about as a future ready lawyer. What does that look like? How do we engage in it? So it's a really great question. And I think what you're doing is really on course.
I appreciate that. And I know Nichole will continue to work on me to say I need to get over it. And she's right. I do. I'll get there.
I'm continuing to try to convince David to use AI in different ways. Although I will say that David and I have worked together on some AI prompts that have been shared firm-wide as well.
That's true.
That is true. And that's part of this collaborative innovation culture that we are, really excited about here at the firm. And as you share those with us, we are sharing that in management meetings, in team meetings, as trainings that we're offering, and helping everyone understand, like, this is what David and Nichole came up with, and here's how it helped them. And I think that's what's going to help us with the tipping point of our AI-enabled workforce and future-ready lawyers.
So moving to our final question, what's something that you would tell every in-house counsel to pay attention to right now?
This one's a little easier for me because I'm going to say pay attention to the rapid rise of legal tech and AI and how it's embedded into those solutions and how you might bring it into your organization. But I want to go a little deeper than that, because if anything, in helping to co-create IncuBaker 10 years ago and seeing our trajectory over the past 10 years, would be, don't forget about the people. It does come down to adoption of technology. It does come down to helping to educate and subside fears over what this technology will do. And there could be other misconceptions in the other direction, right? Some may want it to take care of everything or think that it's a magic button, and it really isn't. So it is a constant, know who your people are, help manage those expectations, help them understand the risks, be thoughtful about it. And I think that the organization overall will be so much better for it. On a small side note, I would say a lot of our clients that we engage with, right, they're different than a law firm like us. They are thinking about all of the business units that are leveraging AI, from development to sales to marketing and beyond. And so there's a bigger complexity there and an opportunity for the in-house counsel to play a large role in managing AI across their enterprise. So this is where we often work with them on AI usage policies, technical implications of AI, and just a wealth of opportunity for those that really love the topic. And I would encourage them to participate on that enterprise level.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Katherine. It's been great that we could steal a little bit of your time. I know you're incredibly busy, but I think David and I are both excited about what's happening at the firm in the AI space and generally all the things you touch on.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's lawyers like yourself that I think are really bringing a lot of this to fruition. So I appreciate your time and the opportunity just to share some thoughts and ideas.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
If you have any questions for David or Nichole, their contact information is in the show notes. As always, thanks for listening to Baker Hosts. Comments heard on Baker Hosts are for informational purposes and should not be construed as legal advice regarding any specific facts or circumstances. Listeners should not act upon the information provided on Baker Hosts without first consulting with a lawyer directly. The opinions expressed on Baker Hosts are those of participants appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect those of the firm. For more information about our practices and experience, please visit bakerlaw.com.